Friday. We made it. Week 2 of Tea with Maya. Episode 9 this week because Monday was a public holiday. So I've checked a couple times that the mic is on. Still can't believe I did that yesterday. Well, life of a creator. It's going to happen at some point. I still remember that being really something very irritating that we didn't factor in when we were running the agency. It's like I think this is where a lot of people also go wrong when they move from being an employee to running their own business and basically just putting on a self-employed hat because they transfer all the skills that they didn't like over here and try and run a business that way too. And when you do the calculations on your hours down to the wire in a creative company and fill those up, there ain't no room for error. What happens to the days where you've edited something for 4 hours or been working on a graphic for 4 hours in Adobe Photoshop and then it decides to, I don't know, crash and you didn't click save and you can't get it back. So you have to redo it. But now you've just lost those hours and there are other clients that need those hours and there's no time. This is where the stress comes from. This is also where the insanity comes from. I mean, when I step back now and look at what we were doing to ourselves, it makes me laugh. It makes me laugh. It makes me cry. It was a learning curve. Just, yeah. I definitely realized building a personal brand and running my own thing is more suited for me, at least for now. Anyway, the other stuff I don't mind doing later when I know what I'm doing, or I have more of a coaching and a mentor and advisor that can keep me sane and make me build the way that I know it was supposed to. Again, I think that was something so exciting about finding the work that I do with Legacy Builder now. It's like the way Clifton's built that agency and the team and is running and the way that he's built out the clients and just what he's built. Like, I knew it was possible. I don't know if I was ever the right person to be pulling that off because, again, the agency model gave me red flags quite early on in terms of my own life cycles with that kind of business model, that I wasn't passionate enough about it to have me fully being the engine in front of it for that long. I realized that very quickly after those 3 years, building hard. We did good. We did. So it is what it is. But I wanted to actually come on today because that was sparked by a little clip I was watching on YouTube yesterday. It was Joe Hudson. He was talking about one of Theo Von's podcast episodes that he did. And in this episode, he was sort of taking that zoom out approach because he's a coach for mindset shifts and everything. He's actually quite brilliant the way he explains everything. I love the work that he does. And yeah, this episode with Theo Von, there was this realization in one of the clips where Theo was talking about you have to actually want what you want in order to do the reps required. Like, you have to want all of it. And I think a lot of us walk around with wants and shoulds that are projected because that's all we know, or that's all that we think we know is what's going to get us the results that we want on the other side, without realizing yet that one might not be the only way, but two might not be the best way for you to achieve it. If you've got somebody else's thing in mind, I guess case in point was the agency stuff, is I genuinely thought one of the, ways to build a business was you build it up, you create systems and processes, and you create teams, and you build yourself out. And in my mind, because of the timelines that I was on, it was like 3 years into something you could start looking at building yourself up and out of it. And the 3 years that we did with that agency, it was funny. It was one of the days that I was coming home on the commuter bus. So it was full from Central. Again, it still annoys me that I was even commuting on a commuter bus, doing office hours like that when it was my own fucking company and I didn't need to. I felt like an employee in my own company. I was working with a business partner, and the dynamic was always we were partners, but he was the boss. And fair enough, he had his name on, on a lot more of the paperwork and the stakes, and I was earning sweat equity within the business. But again, my own silliness and my own not wanting to pay attention to any of the numbers of the finances because I'm not good at math when it's just plus and minus. So yeah, it's amazing what stories we tell ourselves. But one of the ways I'd known of success is that in terms of a business model, right? You build up some sort of business, you create the team, you create the systems, you create the processes, and you can build yourself up and out and be the owner and the manager and make sure that it's working properly. Now, in order to do that, a couple things. If you're going to be doing it on a shorter timeline, you've got to have a lot of conviction and a lot of trust in what you do and a lot of solid boundary holdings and standard settings without being mean or without overstepping. But I notice even nowadays we've gotten into the culture of coddling and, don't hurt my feelings in the workplace and all this sort of stuff. And in my mind, I'm also like, yeah, but you're here to do a job. So there's only certain, things you can smudge the line, even though, yes, you don't have to make it an absolute hell to be there. And also, if you take care of your people, they actually want to work for you instead of being a dick. But that's a whole nother conversation and a story. Looping it back. Commuter bus on the way home, 6 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock at night. I'd been in the office since 7 o'clock in the morning, and I burst into tears. It was around COVID time because I was wearing a mask. I remember I just had to allow them to go. I just broke. I was exhausted. I was so stressed. My nervous system was fried. I was on that verge of like panic attacks, most days. My mind was racing. We had the office on Hollywood Road in Central, and at the time I think we had 2 employees and 1 intern, or 1 employee and 2 interns at the time. So team of 5 in total, running and operating, and fuck me, was I with the wrong business partner. But I remember getting to that point and being at home on the bus, and I'm like, technically, on paper, this is the success that I've been wanting. It's like, yeah, we've got the team, we're building, we're doing this, but I felt like I was sinking. I felt like there was no light at the end of the tunnel. I was now managing my job plus all these fucking people which got thrown onto me, and I didn't have my own backbone in order to stand up and say, off, like, this is not my role within this. We have to do it properly. I didn't know how to stand my ground in terms of what I wanted, and I think it definitely got to the point at that point. It was after that we ended up trying to team up with another company, and it was just a mess, man. It was just a mess. You know, when you find those people that will negotiate for a crumb, and that are more happy to negotiate down and do more, and like, I just suddenly saw, I was like, okay, the issue isn't the offering, the service, the company, my intentions, anything like that. There was a definite issue on somebody that wanted something to operate a certain way and was refusing to operate differently, and was still operating out of that desperation for any client to come through the door, that he was not willing to say no and stand his ground and wait for a client that would come through the door with the price point that we've now upped because of the mess and the situation that we've been getting in. Like, I think at any given moment you have a choice to turn the ship in another direction, and again, draw a line in the sand and take a step forward and go, we are doing things differently. No more, and it blew my mind. But it made me come to this realization that, like, sitting there with that stress, the amount of people that are just putting on this, keeping up the Joneses, they do the thing on paper, they buy the business, they do the brand, they build the company, they They start going to work for themselves. They don't really know what they're doing. They also don't ask for help. They don't also know their own value, which means they get shit on by clients, which means they then tolerate shitty clients, which means they start to hate what they do, which means they then doubt what they do, which means that they then think that they're not very good at what they do, which means then they're not feeling very great in order to go out and find the clients that will actually value what they do. You can see where this is a real self-fulfilling downward spiral again. Madness, I tell you. Madness. Madness, madness, madness. But I remember it was 3 months before I found out I needed spine surgery. I was starting to get into those states where my body, I call them my red flag rashes. It happened, that was triggered when I was 25, when my initial spine injury happened. I was in London. We were visiting family. We were actually going for a little kind of family intervention questions with relatives and stuff at the time. But the last couple of days in London, lunch with little sister and big sister. And at the end of lunch, when I stood up, I had shooting pains down both legs. So when I couldn't stand up straight, I was kind of stuck in like a bent over position like this. And every time I tried to stand up straight, there's shooting pain down both legs. Big sister had to push me back in a wheelchair. But that 6 weeks, that summer, we were lucky enough because we were living in the living room at our parents' place on the sofa. And some family friends had their flat that we could borrow for the summer because they were going away for the summer holidays. Crawling around the floor to get to room. I couldn't, again, stand up straight. And then to add insult to injury, I suddenly got a spontaneous outburst of rashes and open wounds. But it was all down my cheeks, all down my neck, and it stopped about here. It all looked like blisters, and these ones were weeping. You know, like when you get scabs, and they just weep a little bit with yellow. So it came all down my face. I had spots just isolated right in my elbow creases, here, and I had a ring about this big of a dotted rash right around my belly button. Boom. And it was nuts. Like, I didn't even want to leave the house. I felt so ashamed of the way that I looked. I was a fucking model at the time. And I had to have tissue on my face. I had to have bandages around while I was in the house. I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to go anywhere. I remember getting myself out to the doctor's childhood doctor. He did a vitamin C drip, took my blood test, did all this sort of stuff. And then the next day when I went back to him, and he just looked at me dead in my face, and he was like, Maya, it's like your white blood cell count's normal, levels are normal, we've done the vitamin C drip, everything looks normal. He's like, your body doesn't know that this is happening to you. And he's looking at me with these damn bandages, and I'm in so much pain. Everything is itching. And I ended up going to my Reiki master to have a session and I would chat through it. And she said, look, eventually it'll go through the skin's one of your biggest organs as well. So it processes quite a lot of stuff. And eventually it did. It did eventually just, calm down. I had to stop eating a lot of the yet-hay foods, like the inner heat foods, and any ginger or anything wasn't doing any good for me. But ever since that episode of that big outburst, whenever I'm in a situation where I start to get highly stressed and my nervous system is really starting to get fried, the blisters start coming back inside my fingers. And I've coined them my red flag rashes. And it happened, I think the first time it happened was when I was ready to quit the protein company. That was with one of my mum's friends, and she was just a nightmare to work with. That's a whole nother story. But I remember having a conversation with her, and like a heated conversation, and I was standing my ground and I was, putting my foot forward, but she was pulling the I'm a boss card. And it was the following day, red flag rashes all the way up in between, like pussy, blistery, itchy. It's like acute eczema or something that gets triggered, but it seems to only get triggered when I'm in a state of fucking despair. And it was at that time around the agency where I was hitting my limit of what I was able to tolerate. And because I had also stopped training, because I was just too exhausted, I say that, I was smoking instead. I was smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, no problem, hiding in the bathroom. Nobody fucking knew that. That was horrible. playing two dots on my phone just to fucking escape for 5 minutes. I remember hitting level 2000 and going, yeah, I think I need to get out of this situation more than I need to hit another level on two dots. And I kind of looked around at what I was doing and I was like, whoa, red flag rash is starting to come back. Like, it's time. Like, I can't put myself through this anymore. I've been very grateful, actually, that throughout my life, it seems like my body has just decided to go, no, we're moving you physically somewhere over there. It's been very painful, but very interesting to watch. And, looking back and connecting the dots with that, every single thing that's happened in my life has all brought me back to asking myself these questions. What do you want? What do you enjoy doing? Who do you enjoy being around? And do more of that. And it's every single time that I try and ignore that and just push through for a certain period of time, yeah, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So I don't know if any of you out there are suffering with eczema and stuff at the moment, but it could also be the stress and anxiety that you're placing on yourself, not necessarily something. And I think it was that moment where I just broke on the bus home and I'm like, what is going on? I'm doing it. Like, I'm building the business. I've got the fucking office. We've done the fucking thing. And it's like I'm fucking miserable. And I think that was the biggest realization of you can do things the wrong way, but even when you're working for yourself, you can end up making yourself miserable, earning an income. And I don't know, I'm very grateful that for some reason it's never had a hold of me in terms of the money side, where I've been able to sacrifice myself for long enough to fully, I guess, kill myself in a situation over a paycheck or over this. Like, it's written all over my face. If I don't want to be somewhere, I am miserable. My entire body just morphs into like a, ugh. And I can see it even in the photos. Like, even now, this is 5 years now. This year will be 5 years out of the agency. It took me the first 2, 3 years just to defrazzle myself, I think, from everything I dealt with the pain of my spine. Because again, I don't think I ever even gave myself enough credit for dealing with that injury for 6 years while still figuring out how to pay rent and live and, be by myself, but be in a lot of pain and make sure that what I was doing was also fueling me. It was crazy, like, thinking that I was on the gym floor as soon as I could stand up. Like, the second I was able to stand up for about 45 minutes to an hour without feeling so much pain. Of course, there was pain, but I knew I could then quit the protein company and go and do another step being a personal trainer. Like, and I was like, at least I'd be happier there. And I think it's this always finding this happiness, but then also realizing that what I missed from the freelance was my own ability to just go out and make my income. But then what I didn't enjoy about the freelance and the modeling and events was that I was still relying on an outside person or an outside event or an outside source to happen and to create that income. I mean, there are plenty of times I remember getting confirmed for a job one time. I think it was like 5,000, 6,000 Hong Kong dollars. Like, not crazy, but a decent day's worth of work. And I remember asking the agent, I was like, brilliant, date confirmed. And they hadn't, I think they had 2 dates. They were waiting to confirm the date. They said the job was confirmed, everything was going ahead. And then I didn't hear from them until 2 days after those dates, where they were like, oh yeah, job's been cancelled. And I was like, well, yeah, I kind of figured that. But until certain things happen, like, you never know what can get taken away from you, and you can't build a life on promised income. And I think that's where then I really enjoyed stumbling into the content creation and the creator world, and showing that, like, in the interim, while you're going out and doing all these awesome projects with other people, you're able to also build your own assets and your own value over time, right where you stand, that actually is not beholden on anybody else. And you're able to then start playing a game of turn the taps on and off. And that's what I enjoy speaking about with my clients. It's like, all right, well, again, what's happening at the moment and what's happening in your life? Is it more feet on the ground, things that are going on there? But then keep a pulse online so that we're building that audience over time, so it doesn't, feel like it's a stopgap for down the line. But, balance. But it was that ability to create your own income from your own skill set, from your own sources, from your own stuff. And I think the hardest thing about jumping into it is how impermanent all of this is, and how ever changing and ever flowing, and how at every single level it opens up another door where you're like, holy shit, like I've been operating on the floor and like I've set a new ceiling, and then next minute fucking new ceiling becomes new floor, and you open up another door and you're like, there are these options and these options and these options. And I think, for a long time, like I'd pushed the money away thinking it's like, oh, that's not necessary, that's not needed, that's not happened. But, you also devalue yourself and your own worth when you don't require people to have some sort of exchange for what you do, especially when what you do is transformational, is coaching, is, moving people, is it's just an energy exchange. It's just an energy exchange. And I'm definitely understanding now the perspective of what a lot of coaches say when they turn around and say, by staying broke and by staying stuck and by staying in the dark, like it's actually a very selfish act in the way that you're not utilizing your gifts. You're not becoming your own best friend to understand that you're worthy enough to create what you want to create, to actually bring it to the world with the beauty that you see. For some reason, you feel like it's not needed or it's not necessary. And it's like, okay, but if you see it and you enjoy it, what else are you going to do? Like, what else are you here to do? Because at the end of the day, I mean, I sat with my granddad, 94, at the end of last year, September. I was very glad I was able to get back for that. We'd just done 2 weeks in the Dolomites. My boyfriend at the time proposed, so he had become my fiancé, and hilarious. When we're that side of the world, I take 6 weeks to go stay with mum and see family and just be a bit of a base and actually have some time to catch up with people, because I work fully online. Location isn't dependent for me. I can set up base wherever, and actually for my clients over in Canada and the States, it worked out really well, and for my clients over in Europe, I'm suddenly on the same time zone, so it's much easier to catch up. Feels less async or in tandem, even though still it works. But I ended up, I had to say bye to my fiance for 6 weeks after we just got engaged. And then I was in the UK. And again, this is one of the reasons why I enjoy hanging around for so long and allowing things to unfold, because the couple of days that I was supposed to go down and see Granddad turned into 10 days, which not a lot of people have that option to just be available. There was no other cousins or grandkids around that were able to go and check in on him. He'd just gone into hospital, and my uncle, who's Dad's brother, he's the last one standing out of that Howard line, him and his wife had to go back into Spain to pick up their visas because they live there, grab a couple of things, and then come back. And there was nobody around to have time with Granddad, so I stayed. And my brother was coming down with his girlfriend the following week and weekend, so I made sure that I was with him until he handed over, and a couple of days in the hospital, moving him to the care home, making sure that he was okay, because that was also the biggest thing. 94, he was starting to not, like, he was still there, but he was repeating loops, and it was a lot sometimes. He wasn't always sure where he was. I had that dreaded day. It was like day 2 or 3 in the hospital where he looks at me and he goes, I'm very upset that Michael hasn't come to visit. And I'm like, damn it, I'm going to have to be the one that tells him that his son has passed again, which is my father, which is difficult. But luckily I have tattoos and I have the liar dice. So I've got Dad's liar dice 6626. So, and I was wearing of course I'm a Howard jumper the whole time. So I felt like I had Dad's presence with me, and I held his hand and I was like, oh, Granddad, Dad's already on the other side. And it was something that was very special to me, actually, to be able to sit there and say to him that I have you this side, and that Dad and Grandma are waiting for you on the other side when you're ready, And it was a couple of weeks after he was in the care home. I think my brother had gone down for the second week, so they'd gone back home, and they did another long haul trip down from, Liverpool down to Plymouth. He lives down in Plymouth, and they had a night, they saw him, and over that evening, he passed in his sleep. Not even in his sleep, actually. He asked a nurse to wake up in the middle of the night and go sit in his chair. And he just wanted to talk to her, and then he asked if she could go get him some water or a cup of tea or something. And when she came back, that was it. He'd let go and he released. But that time with him, I think the memories and I can't even imagine what that feels like when, I mean, he did 40 years in the Navy, he saw so much death and so much terror and like escaped death so many times over his life and what he'd seen and what he'd done. And they say that getting old makes you only more of who you are. And until the day that he passed, Granddad was charming the staff, he was making everybody laugh, he was, like just, oh, he was that. And he always had this zest for life and this cheeriness of no matter what was going on with his body. And you could see how much pain he probably was in with slip discs and things that aren't working. And he's sitting there going, well, I'm basically fine. Like he wouldn't utter a word of complaint. Life is good, life is brilliant. And even, a few years before he got to the point where he couldn't do too much of himself, he'd be making marmalade every January. He'd be, doing vats. It was his marmalade that he'd made with Seville Spanish oranges for the community, and he'd hand them out. And man, he'd be asking me to send over shipments of scarves from Stanley Market that he could buy to give out to the ladies at the supermarket. Who's such a charmer, such a flirt, so funny. In the care home, that was it. One of the nurses, Jamie, she was so sweet, lovely, lovely Filipina lady actually, and she'd come in with his antibiotics each day, and they obviously didn't taste very nice. But she'd walk in the room, and he'd take a look at her, and he'd be like, "Oh, it's you again. You enjoy this, don't you?" And but he'd take his medicine. He'd be no fuss. He wouldn't be pushing the buzzer. He wouldn't be rude. Like, oh, and it's again, it's amazing the treatment that you can get when you're just a decent person. But I think a lot of that tangent of a story really comes back down to the fact that I've seen what it's like being around people getting to that point. And, I've had these conversations with Granddad before, and it's like regret will eat you up. And I think it pains me knowing that there are so many people out there that see something different in this world, and they've just accepted the groundhog or the routine that they've been in out of just sheer numbing of the rest of the world. And that, I think it was this. It was Naval's quote. I wrote it down so that I don't butcher it. We're searching for permanent satisfaction with an impermanent mind in an impermanent world. And I just love that. I wonder, like, not wonder, I mean, society has rigged us to want to have this safety and security and all this stuff, yet at the same time building us into systems that are actually not safe and secure for the actual human that's operating within it, because at any given time the system can go, we don't need you anymore, okay, thanks, bye. And then what? And I think that's always been at the back of my mind. Even when I was a kid, like I didn't understand to me that there were so many different ways to operate in the world, and then yet so many people would just settle for one version and then be very adamant that that was the only version and the only way or the only option, and then still complain. And look, I don't mind if you love what you're doing and you love the life that you're living and you're doing what you're doing. I think I'm talking to the people that know that they want something different, that operate on something different, and they also know that what they can see doesn't make sense on paper. So you don't need to explain it on paper. You need to be around the people and be around the groups and find the breadcrumbs of the creators out there that have created the elements of the life that you can see that you want, and then take a look, almost peeking behind the curtains and being like, all right, now don't underestimate the work that it takes to get there, right? They say that if you look good straight out of bed or you do stuff effortlessly, there's a lot of effort that has been put in, or the time and the patience and the mastery that has been put in to make something look effortless and look easy. So that skill is there, but that's the craft, that's the building. And I think a lot of us forget that we actually enjoy the building and we enjoy the doing, but it feels so scary sometimes to just allow yourself to go, yeah, this is the way. I'm worthy. I like it. This is, yeah, I see this vision. I want this life. I have no use for this. I don't need any, I don't need any input from here. And I'm more than happy to just go and build and find my people and keep myself sane and work my way out from where I am to where I want to go. I just, I know. One, I've done it far too many times for my own good. Plot twists and things. Like, I even remember having a thought one time, stupidly, where I was like, because I was still thinking of retirement being, the time where you can do all your hobbies and things. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool when you get to like 60 if you were able to I'm not even drinking any of my tea. Wouldn't it be cool if you got to like 60 and in your retirement you were able to dedicate a few years to a certain craft? Because I was like, that's it. Because for me, my mindset has always been, I love painting so much that I don't mind putting it on the back burner because I don't mind picking it up when I'm 60, when I'm 70, when I'm 80. And now it's now come to the front of my brain where I'm like, you dumbass, do it now so that you can enjoy it all the way into your 60s and 70s and 80s. So that's coming back into play. I actually just finished my paint by numbers this morning. I'm pretty sure I finished it. I need to double check. It's quite detailed. It's sat there drying. I'll show you. I've got one left. My man bought it for me for Christmas. It is a paint by numbers, 22 numbers. And I don't know if you can see it, but here, right there, there's a dot in the one. It's a 1, and I think it's the last one that I've left open. So I'm going to do a little video where I'm filling in the 1 and then I zoom out and it's finished. And something I love about paint by numbers, and a kind of like an analogy and a reminder for everything in life, is as long as you keep coming back to it, as long as you keep adding brushstrokes to your canvas, to your ideas, to your creations, it will get completed. Whether it takes 6 months, whether it takes 6 weeks, whether it takes 6 days, whether it takes 6 years. As long as you are building something, it will come to life. But then if you get to the conclusions and the realizations that if you take care of yourself and allow yourself to stop focusing on all this wasted energy out here and use all that extra energy into your creations now, you actually get to live a life that you never even fucking imagined. But it does come from trusting. And it does come from letting go. And it does come from playing a little game with your mind. Because where you're at in your current understanding and frameworks, it can't see what's over here. But at the same time, you've seen enough online of different lives and different options that you can kind of start to piece together the things. And the only difference between them and you is that they've actually just gone and done the thing. They've done the painting, they've done the training, they've done the work, they've done the gym session, they've lifted the weights over and over and over and over again. They just started and didn't stop. I always loved that. It was Les Brown's. He does his big speech. I don't know if I can link it in the description or if you go find it. Les Brown, motivational speaker. He was a disc jockey back in the day. He's this absolutely insane speech. And at one point he goes, it's not over until I win. And I think when you realize that you get to rig the game into a win-win-win situation, when you step out of the fact that you're not actually running anybody else's race but your own, and I think it was even a Naval quote as well, again, I think it's like a true sign of intelligence is getting what you want out of this life. And it's like, will you allow yourself to raise to meet the requirements of your imagination? I think that was a different quote for somebody else, but one that also stuck in that point where it's like, if you have dreams and goals, it's going to require you to be brave enough to step into that action and to live it into reality. And it was brilliant. I actually pulled the schizophrenia card yesterday from the tarot deck. Stupid cards. I call these stupid cards. Mum raised us on tarot cards. If we were having issues and stuff at school, or struggling with insights or things that we were dealing with, we'd go to the cards, and I call them stupid cards because they're always right. Every so often I pick up one as like a meditation for the day, and yesterday I picked up this one, and it's been the visualization that I've been wanting to articulate as well when you are feeling like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. But let me just read this to you. It's actually a beautiful, beautiful card. Schizophrenia. So he's on the edge, the guy on the edge, holding with his hands and his feet, and the two birds and the clouds. And it just says, I think this will probably be our wrap up for today, but it says, the person on this card brings a new twist to the old idea of getting stuck between a rock and a hard place. But we are in precisely this sort of situation when we get stuck in the indecisive and dualistic aspect of the mind. Should I let my arms go and fall head first, or should I let my legs go and fall feet first? Should I go here or there? Should I say yes or no? And whatever decision we make, we will always wonder if we should have decided the other way. The only way out of this dilemma is, unfortunately, to let go of both at once. You can't work your way out of this one by solving it, making lists of pros and cons, or working it out with your mind in any way. Better to follow your heart. And if you can't find it, better to follow your heart if you can find it. If you can't find it, just jump. Your heart will start beating so fast there will be no mistake about where it is. And I definitely feel like that was one of the phases of my life where I just had to say to myself, do more of what you enjoy and less of what you don't, whatever that looks like. And then the second part of this, it just says, man is split. Schizophrenia is a normal condition of man, at least now. I think a lot of us resonate with that. It may have not been so in the primitive world, but centuries of conditioning, civilization, culture, and religion have made man a crowd, divided, split, contradictory. But because this split is against his nature, hidden deep down somewhere, the unity still survives. Because the soul of man is one, all the conditioning at the most destroys the periphery of the man, and the center remains untouched. That's how a man continues to live. But his life has become hell. The whole effort of Zen is about how to drop this schizophrenia, how to drop this split personality, how to drop the divided mind, how to become undivided, integrated, centered, crystallized. That's why they say you've got to go inside, man. The way you are, you cannot say that you are. You don't have a being. You are a marketplace, many voices. If you want to say yes, immediately the no is there. You cannot even utter a simple word yes with totality. That's when you're feeling still in the schizophrenic state. In this way, happiness is not possible. Unhappiness is a natural consequence of a split personality. And again, take with that what you will, but that goes as deep as relationships, as your work, as your anything. I think, and I even in the personal branding sphere, that's the biggest thing that I'm working with my clients, is to break down this layer of feeling like you're schizophrenic with your content online and presenting a different persona, because eventually the unhappiness it bleeds through. It's not congruent, it's not aligned, it's not authentic. And I think it's that should I, shouldn't I, being stuck in the middle when at the end of the day, nobody knows what's going to happen, nobody knows what could come of it, and you don't either. And I think that's part of the magic. And I think, I'm really excited that I've started this series. I feel like this has been ruminating for a long time. And again, it's only been recently. And having now come off the back of my family being town, and with everything that happened with my sister's concert for Dad the other week, and just the magic of seeing what she's also brought to life and who that brought out of the woodwork, and just reveling in that creativity. I mean, goddamn, she's a musician at the end of the day. And that's my little sister. That's my blood that creates that. And I know I have my own creation and my own magic in me. And I know you all do too. And if you're watching this and if you've stayed this long, just don't let go of that. Find the answers. And if there's any way that I can help and support, I've got my links to all my stuff in my bio. That's what I'm offering at the moment. That's what I've got. If you want a little bit of more of a daily connection to me, jump into my free newsletter, The Pulse. And I think that kind of concludes week 2 of Tea with Maja. I'm really looking forward to next week. Let's see if we can get this going. I'm excited to see where we are in 6 months' time. All right. Happy Friday.